Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Cambridge Centre for Evaluation and Monitoring webinar on how baseline assessments can unlock secondary and post-16 potential. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. So please note that your microphones are muted. You cannot hear any members of the audience, and this is to ensure good sound quality. If you'd like to ask questions, please post them in the questions section of the GoToWebinar control panel, and we will be happy to answer them at the end of the webinar. You'll receive a certificate of attendance, which will be sent to your email inbox 1 hour after the webinar finishes, and you'll receive a copy of the webinar recording sent to you via email next week. Just a little bit about Cambridge CHEM, which is the Centre for Evaluation and Monitoring. So we've been working with schools for 40 years. We're celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. In over 100 countries. We're known for our evidence-based research approach to baseline and formative assessments, using extensive data sets to support future outcomes and development. We work with schools, ministries, and associations to transform the outcomes of the students they teach. And in 2019, we became part of the University of Cambridge, which has supported our reach and abilities to support young people across the world. So we help teachers turn data into knowledge, we bridge the gap between research and practice, and we provide evidence to support good decision making. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Lucy Baker, who is one of our assessment advisors at CHEM. Over to you, Lucy.
Thank you so much, Megan. So thank you everyone for coming today and taking time out your busy day. I know you have returned to school as of this week, so I hope it's all going well for you all. So Megan's already mentioned some of this, but as you know, as she says, for over 40 years, CHEM has been working developing digital baseline assessments, and we're really proud of them, and we hope you enjoy them when they help you and support you in schools. We're in 109 countries now, and we're hoping to develop and improve and always be the best that we can, and work with lots of different associations. And as you know, we're all part of Cambridge University Press and Assessment, where we work together with our teams like OCR, with Cambridge International, to give the best for teachers and students, which is research-based and offers the best practice. So today we're here to look at baseline assessments, how best to use them in your secondary and sixth forms. So baseline assessments, as you know, today we're going to be focusing on Midges, Yalis and Alice. So CHEM supports students from ages 3 to 19, but today we're just going to focus on the higher secondary school and post-16 students today. So if you have any questions, Megan said, just please put the questions in the question box. At the end, I'll come back and answer anything you have that pops up or comes up when you're listening to this webinar today. So now, just a little bit about me, actually. So I used to be a teacher. So up until last July, I was a teacher and I loved it. And then I've transitioned to CHEM, where I still get to help and support other teachers, which is absolutely fabulous. And I do and used to love assessment. So as we know, assessment is an amazing feedback tool. It's really powerful and it's actually really helpful in hitting your targets as a teacher, supporting students, and also just making sure the school knows what they're aiming for and the outcomes that will happen. So the power of assessment is maximised when assessments are timely, informative, and they're related to what teachers are actually doing. And I say that from an ex-teaching perspective, if the information you get is actually beneficial in the classroom, it's key to getting the best from your students and from your staff and from just your lessons and your lesson plans. So I'm going to give you some information today that should be able to help you and look at some of the reports that I think are really beneficial and really positive for you and give you some hands-on information to support that. So as we know, it's the first term and you get first term data. So if you are a CHEM user currently, by this week, hopefully you'll be starting to our CHEM assessments, or we'll be planning to in the next few weeks. And this will give you your first term's data. It will give you really clear baseline data. It will give you an insight into the student about their learning needs. And this will help you because from this data, you'll be able to implement things which support an individual student, groups of students, or a whole class or cohort interventions. It also can help provide and support whole school plans, as you can get cohort data, but also previous value-added data, which is from the year previously, so you understand the school's needs and where your school is at and what you need to do to move forward. It can help with your subject choices, so we give a lot of predictive and chance data, and we'll say what is likely to happen, and it will help students understand what they're likely to get and the outcomes, which is really positive, and will help guide them in the most accurate way possible in their future and help them succeed and feel positive about that. It can help schools long-term planning as part of KEM, and other companies too who also do base assessments. They can offer ways that understand previous data and predictive data. It's a really good way to track it and understand. And the most key thing for us, especially at KEM, especially for I think that most places, is saves teachers time. Having a baseline data assessment like this is really effective because it's online, it's marked for you, but actually it's really helpful in saving teachers time because the reports are given to you, and then it becomes you as a teacher or you as a senior leadership team to use that data to improve your school and understand the data that's happening. So that's why I think it's quite effective. So how can it be used to make a difference? So data can make a massive difference. It's just how it's used. When I was teaching, I've worked in some schools where you had data managers and it was really efficient and effective and really helped. Some schools don't have data managers, and that's okay. It all depends on what schools have, but it's how you use it and how you can support each other across your whole team, staff team, to use this data in an effective way. So by using this baseline data, it enables teachers to plan, and it gives you the steps to take with instructions. And by this, it means that if you have some data and you go, I'm not sure what to make of this, you can break down what the data is showing you, and it goes, okay, so what do we need to do to make sure these outcomes occur? So if you have some predictive data, it's going, okay, so we think that most of the students will be in the top tier. How can we make sure this happens? What do we need to do? Do we need to give clear instructions to the teachers, to certain subjects? How can we use this to support us? And then also, this one's key, is how they need to change and adapt for cohorts of students. So as we know in teaching, every student is different, every cohort is different. You can never predict, and all students will come in differently, and cohorts, and it will change every year, especially since COVID, it's been very different. And schools are amazing at adapting and changing to this, and the data will show this and reflect this as your accurate year and cohort. It's really important that you understand the cohort and the class you have and use the data in that effective way, which is why I really recommend it. And it's just making sure that you understand that change is okay. If it's been done differently to the previous year, that's fine. It's about that year's children, that year's data, and how you can get the best from them and help them achieve. So one key thing for me, and I'm sure for many teachers on this webinar, that it's that students should know the steps they need to take to improve their progress. Because if they understand, they'll understand they're learning better from this. And that's really key because especially with secondary and post-16 students, it's really important that they understand what they need to do to make this development, how they can improve, but also if they need help, who they can go to. And by understanding your data, the student will know that you understand what their learning needs are, and they understand what steps they need to take to achieve the grades they are predicted through our chance graphs, for example. It's really important. I know this is a really great way to help have those connections with students, with their parents, and to be knowledgeable what data everyone knows where they stand. So this is a quote from a school who is local KEM user of our school, just near us in Cambridge, and it says, sharing the MIGIS students' profile with teachers stimulates discussion and leads to the setting of appropriate levels of challenge. And this links back to my previous point about students knowing. It's also really important that teachers get given these reports, this data as well, because it really helps them understand what their class is doing and how they can benefit from it. Obviously, teachers are very busy, but there's lots of key reports that break it down and can help teachers in this way. So I'd recommend this because if you have one person looking at data, that's great. But if they're not sharing the knowledge across your school, across your departments, then you won't be able to improve. Whereas if you can share it effectively, teachers can support each other, they can share ideas of how they feel they could improve, what you're doing well, what you might want to change for next year, and it's a really positive way to do this. So here at KEM, and of course I think any companies, we will encourage that you do share data with teachers just to make their jobs quicker and easier, but also to let them understand who their cohort is and what the levels of the children are coming in to help set challenges. Because as we know, students love a challenge. If you challenge them, they will thrive and they'll develop and they'll learn to be proud of themselves for the achievements they make. So first I'm going to go into about MIGIS and YELLIS today. So I'm going to go through some of the key reports that I think will be really effective for you and your schools, even if you are currently a head teacher, just a member of SLT. I think these ones are really important for you and they're really good ones to look at. I will just add, whilst we're on this screen, so we offer MIGIS and YELLIS, we offer standardization, attainment, predictions, and value added. So if you are a user of KEM last year and you are this year, if you haven't sent your value added data in, I really recommend you do, because you get some really good feedback from your previous year's cohort. That's just my prompt for you if you have just to do that, because it will really help you get more data to understand your school from last year and set goals for this year ahead. So the first report that I think is really beneficial, so it's the student predictions for GCSE and IGCSE for international schools. So this report shows the predicted expected grades in the final high stakes exams. So this one will really clearly break down what are the likely predicted grades. And it obviously looks like a lot of numbers. So you might have some teachers maybe aren't as data confident, and that's okay. But let's just break down all the different areas of the likelihood for the grades. And it's just a really clear overview. This one you can look and compare and see what your likelihood is, and you go, okay, what subject's likely to achieve higher or lower? Where can we offer some intervention support? Where would it benefit to maybe have a teaching assistant in that class to help support in that sort of way? Or is it worth doing a different language subject to another one because one's got a lot more likelihood of getting higher grades? And that's the decisions that reporters can give you in a really positive way. So we also have got the chance graphs. The chance graph report is really effective. So this chance graph, they do look like rockets, but they actually show the probability of each student achieving the range of final high stakes subjects. Again, similar to the last one, but in a different way. So if we can look where the orange arrows are, it will break it down. So on the green arrow, so if we've got our first arrow here, the green one says assessment score, it will break down where the student lies and the likelihood they are to achieve that grade. And then it breaks down into the so for example, English literature, French, and it will really break it down. And this is a really good visual to show to students, but also to show maybe to parents or to have a teacher who's targeting that student and go, okay, they're likely to get a 6, that's amazing, but what can I do to help them? But at the same time, they have 19% chance of getting a 5. So how can I support them to get their grade 6 or higher and help them excel? And this way you look at the data and you identify the trends across your class, across your cohorts, and you can see where to support them. It's also just probability. So this is a really good discussion. But if you have some students go, well, I'm predicted to get a 6, great, I can just keep not trying as hard. And you go, actually, this is the likelihood. But what you need to do is you have to, if you work harder, you could get higher, as there was other percentages, but also you might get lower. So it's reminding the people that they have to also work hard for their grades, but you're there to support them and you understand their learning needs in that subject. And it's a really good one, I think, to support students in that way. So we also offer chance graphs by subjects. So these reports for the likelihood of a whole range of grades that may be achieved in each subject. So this is especially important. So if you're looking at your maths and English data or even art and design, it covers all your subjects, but it will break down what the likelihood of that class is. So if you are the class teacher, and as you know, you want your students to succeed, you want to succeed and know they're getting the grades they should be. This will give you the overall view of what that cohort will get in this subject. And it's a really good breakdown to understand. Go, okay, so at grade 7, it's got the highest chance. But what does this mean? What can I do? Can I boost it to maybe get to grade 8? And it's understanding what you can do and where your class's needs are. If maybe the graph is lower, so then it's what can we do to support this in that sort of way. And it's really effective in that. And it's, again, a really good visual to do this, but I think it's really worth sharing these with the subject teachers. So if you are the head teacher or deputy head, and you can sit down with your subject teachers, say, is this the likelihood for your current year group? What do you think? Do you agree? And then you can have those discussions and build that confidence up by showing them the data in a positive way. So, and this is one that I really think is really important. I encourage teachers to look at this, but also if you have any SENCOs or anyone in the school who's focused on individual students. And this one that I will talk about for ages because I think it is vitally important. So the individual student record. This gives an overview of just one student. So obviously there'll be lots, especially a massive cohort, but it's really key that you look at these, especially if you've looked at your standardized scores and you've noticed maybe some people are lower in certain areas but high in others, or some are really high and they've got one area that's lower. It's really worth bringing up that individual student record because this will help a lot. So let me just explain. So it contains the student scores for each section of our baseline assessment. So it includes vocabulary ability, maths ability, and non-verbal ability. And it'll give you overall scores. But if you look at the picture below, where we've got our broken down standardized scores, it highlights to me that actually their non-verbal skills are quite low. So where that line is, that is the average. But actually for this student here, their non-verbal is very low. So this will highlight that maybe in the future, there might be a few issues with actually their development because their non-verbal is so low. And it goes, And it makes you need to think about that. Whereas their vocabulary is really high, so it means they're really able with their vocabulary, but actually non-verbal is a massive area that you need to focus on, and you get a really good overview. So for example here, just to explain my point, I have got a mock student here. This student has got some good data. So their non-verbal is high and above average, which is great. This shows that they're a visual learner, they're good at spotting patterns, they're a problem solver, but they might show that they're a bit slow, maybe lack ability in explaining. It might show they're artistic, but you will know your students better. But this one actually will go, wow, really great non-verbal skills. But then you come to vocabulary, you go, the vocabulary is a bit low, but that's okay. It's still near the average mark, but it's a little bit low. So maybe you could do have some keyword vocabulary cards for books where you stick them in and they have key vocabulary to use in their work, and support them in this way, something simple but quite straightforward and will really benefit them. But then we can come to maths. So part of the maths section is actually about speed and fluency. So with speed and fluency, it shows that they're actually below average. They haven't got the fast processing to be able to get the higher scores. They're taking more time over questions. So this actually might highlight that this student maybe needs some extra time. Our assessments do give you 20, if they have extra time, you can add it on our assessments to copy how they would do in real exams. But I think this would actually really highlight that they need maybe extra time because they need that further time to think about it and suggest. And again, the skills section is also below average. And again, highlights, do they need extra time again? And I think this is where if you have a student who has really interesting data like this, where their non-verbal is high and then some other ones are lower, you go, actually, what does this student need? And this was a really important report that I would say for Alice, Midges or Yellis, I'd really recommend having a look. It's a really good indicator. It might spot if they have any EAL, if the EAL maybe needs some more support with vocabulary, or if they maybe have dyslexia. And it's a really good indicator. So please have a look at these if you have any students you're not sure about. On the other end of the scale, I've seen some reports where I've had teachers actually feed back to me and they've gone, well, they had really high data and it shocked me. And they explained that actually when they talked to the student, because they didn't realize their score would be so high, obviously they didn't phrase it in that way, but they actually went, oh, the students said actually I'm quite bored in lessons and I find it easy. And that explained why the student may have acted up. As we know, students do this, but then it made the teacher go, okay, so what can we do? And it opened up those communications, but also it made them understand that student a bit more and maybe realize, actually, I should be targeting them more and challenging them because they can do this. It's a really good indicator. So that was Midges and Yellis. So that was our key ones that I think will really benefit you. So our chance graphs, predictive data, and especially the individual student. But I can also say you get cohort reports as well, which are really interesting as well. But have a look for yourself. But they're the key ones that I think will benefit you currently to understand baseline assessment at the moment and the best way to use the data to help you for the year ahead and set really clear, efficient targets. So if you have some sixth forms here, so we're going to look at Alice now, suppose 16. So I've highlighted two that I'm going to be talking about today, but these are the range of reports that we have. So we offer baseline feedback, which includes standardization scores, individual pupil attainment profiles, cohort profiles in all sections of the assessment. We also offer predictive feedback, so this again links to likely grades. And again, if you fed back your GCSE results, this will really help with value added. As a reminder again, and you get individual chance graphs, subject chance graphs, and then link back progress and value added. You get this as well, but this data comes in August. So I'm just going to show you about what we have in Alice so far. So standardized scores. So it tells you how your students did in the online assessment. You go, great, I've got a really good overall. So you get it either broken down to sections. So you've got vocab, math sections, and non-verbal sections. It breaks them down for you really clearly. So this one you would have at the end here, you'd have a student's name just next to the number, and then it'll go, so this is one student along with their whole scores. But again, this I'd really recommend for teachers, for senior leadership, just to have a look at, or my subjects to look at and go, okay, what have I got? What students look below where they should be? Is there any outlying data? What can I do? It's a really good way to just get that whole overview, but have a really clear look at the data that you have. And I think this one's a really good reflection of that. And especially if you like numbers and data, it's a really nice way to show this. It breaks it down. You can go, actually, for example, in our vocab section, you can say that maybe over 75% of your pupils in the vocab did amazingly. They got really high vocab, but then 25% that are left have actually got really low scores. Does this mean we need to maybe plan an intervention? Does it mean that you maybe need to work out what you can do to help support them in lessons? Can you include things, including lesson plans, so maybe something at the start of the lesson where you record the previous lesson and you talk about the vocab that was used, prompt it, remind it, get them to use it in the context to really help support them to expand their vocab and expand their skills in that area. And just gives you that whole view and really helps you, I think. This is definitely one I'd really encourage you as a school to look at and use. And if you are using it, great. Actually, if there's anyone who's currently watching and you have a favourite report, or you think something you really found useful in your school, please feel free to put it in the chat because it's really interesting to see, and I can read them out at the end to help any other teachers on this webinar as well to understand what you found useful using these assessments and what reports are really beneficial. So, similar to Murgis and Yellis, Alice offers student predictions. So, this report shows the expected grades in the final examinations based on 2 possible baselines. It shows, and when you upload them, you actually put their GCSE data in, which you will have, being a post-16 setting, and this will really help inform the data, and also helps and it goes alongside the baseline to give a really clear outcome of what the students are likely to get. So, for example, here, so it says their GCSE scores in the first column on the left. It breaks them down. It says what the subject is, and then it says the level of the next grade. And it breaks it down really clearly the likely grades they're going to achieve. So if I've had some schools who have said they actually use this to when they have their prospective students coming up, they use it to help inform what students will pick for their future topics, which is really interesting. So one school's gone and said, actually, we found that they did this. They then had an informed decision about what they're going to choose. And they show it to the students, they show it to the parents, and it really helped them get the best from their data and understand where they're most likely to succeed. So everyone wants to succeed and they want to be able to get the knowledge they can and be the best they can. So it's really effective, I think. And that's how some schools use this in this way. I think it's really helpful. If not, it helps to do this just to understand what they're likely to get, and then you can have a sit down with a student. See if you have a student who goes, actually, you're predicted to get a bit lower than what's expected, or what's about the average. What do you think? What can we do? And it can get you go, actually, so we need to boost your grade in maths. How can we do this? And then you can support them in that way. And you can look at their individual pupil profile to see that again, and it will support you to do that. So it's really effective, I think, and a really great way to help students have an informed decision and understand where their learning is as well. So I'd really recommend this to use, especially for A-levels. So again, we have our chance graphs. So the chance graphs here, they show the probability of each student achieving the range of final high-stakes subject grades. So the chances are available for A-levels, for diploma exams as well. And I've got an example here. So it shows subjects by prediction for possible post-16 baselines. So again, a student has done this and they've gone, okay, so if you do history, A2, what are you likely to get? And then they've got an overview of what they're likely to get. So if they're on the highest scale, you go, great, history is perfect for you. I think it'll be really effective for you. You'll get a high grade. And if they like it, that's amazing. But then, for example, if they had another subject like geography and they went, actually, you're predicted to get lower than quite a low grade that won't help you maybe to support you for your university studies or what you need your grades for. What can we do about this? And again, has those open chats. Or it might just prompt them to go, if a student really wants to do history, but they're not as likely to achieve a higher grade, you go, okay, so you're predicted to achieve 1 grade lower than you want. We can support you to do this. You still have a probability of getting that grade if you work hard. So let's do this together. And you can make an action plan with that student, with their parents, make it really clear what you expect so they can understand what they need to do as a learner, but also how they can get there. And again, I just think it's really good to be very honest about data. And again, encourage sharing with the student and with the teacher, just to show them the set targets that are really effective for them and help them understand in that way. So really effective one again, really nice visuals. If you have some teachers in your school who might not be as data confident, especially if you have NQTs, it's a really good way to show them this and get them to understand and develop in their career as well. It's a really nice one to show and then go, so what do you think? Should we go with A2 history this year? Should we encourage people to do this? And yeah, again, all those conversations, a really good one for your school to use. And also you can look back at the end of the year and go, has it worked? What do we think? And then you can compare. It's a really good tracker for your data as well. So we also do obviously in depth. So we do chance graphs by subject, similar again to Murgis and Yellis. So these reports display the likelihood of a whole range of grades that may be achieved. So that's in each subject in the school. So I've got an A2 biology here, which I'll explain. So it shows the predictions from GCSEs in the purple columns and then it shows the predictions from the baseline test in the red column. So this will highlight to you that the chance. And you can go, okay, so for A2 biology this year, what's it showing us? Is it likely to be a subject that's going to achieve high? Will it achieve lower? So we've had some schools who come to us going, we're not sure which subjects to do. And then they've actually purchased Chem to help them understand this, because they want to get the best possible grades in their students and help the students achieve their potential. So they've done this and found the subjects that are strongest for them and support them in the most effective way. So this is again a really good one for senior leadership to look at, for subject teams to look at and go, okay, so for biology this year, we're likely to achieve around B grades. That's great. Okay, so what can we do from here? And I think it's really effective to do this, and really good practice to compare and just to discuss what you're going to do. Are you going to plan some interventions to support this, to boost this? Are you going to, what type of curriculum do you want to plan? Yeah, really good conversations, open conversations about data, about setting targets that are achievable, and set up your subject to achieve as well. So here's my key part. So what is most important when you're looking at and using data? Because sometimes you can get a lot of data, especially as a teacher. When I was a teacher, I was often quite stressed, as I'm sure some of you might link to, but actually, what is the key part that we can do to look at the data and use it effectively? So if you're using Chem baseline data, so once you have your Chem baseline data, it's important to make sure that you are monitoring progress. So great, you're going to get your baseline data soon. That's the start of your data if you use it at the start of the year. And you're going to be able to understand your student, look at their individual graph, look at their chances, look at their predictions, make a really good way to give them a head start at the start of this year. But then if you don't look at it again, if you go, great, I've seen that graph, I put it aside, and you never look at it again, it's not going to benefit you. It's something that you can go back to, look at and check. And by monitoring the progress of the student and making sure that you're working with them to fit their baseline data was, it will help them develop. And that links nicely into tracking. So having a system of recording it over time of what the student learned is really key. So that doesn't mean you have to do lots of tests all the time and assessments. It's not in that way. It's understand that if you're doing a biology lesson and you're targeting an areas to boost vocabulary, it's going back and seeing, are you seeing more vocabulary in their work? Are they using it? Are they understanding it? Is then having a system that's really clear and effective across your whole school, across your department, where you're sharing it and tracking it. So you can say, I'm doing this, and you can feed back to SLT or back to other people in the department and say, my students aren't making progress here. What can we do to adapt it? And that's the thing I really think is key. As we know as teachers, if you're stuck on an idea or stuck on how to support a student or a cohort or your class, you go, okay, you can go to someone else and go, what would you do? And you can share ideas in that way. And I think that's a really good way to do it. But by tracking it, you can prove where you're going. You have the evidence of how well your class is doing or your cohort, and also you know where you need to target next. So the records, again, as I just previously said, it was really good to have a really clear records, but it's a really effective way. You could have a Google Docs sheet of all across your school where you put all the data, the tracking, great. But if it's not effective and used well, it won't benefit you, because again, it's just another piece of paper that's sitting there with data on. And data, the aim of Chem's baseline data assessment is meant to support everyone across the whole school system. It's meant to help everyone be able to develop and improve with the students, but also help teachers to know what their cohort is. So I recommend having a way to do this and record it in an effective way where teachers can see it, senior leadership can, where you could have maybe a teaching assistant come in and go, oh, okay, I spotted this, can we do this? And it's really important that you have this. So I'd recommend having something consistently across your school, something really clear that helps support everyone across the school. Because as we know, as we work as a team, everything's easier, especially in teaching. So most crucial, how teachers make use of the information to support students' learning and development. As I just said, you could get this data and go, great, I can see that 70% of my class is due to achieve in biology, wonderful. If you put that aside, again, don't look at it, you won't be able to help you. So I really think it's key that you look back at it and you compare and you see. It's really important you do this, and you can support teachers in doing it. You could have CPD sessions where you actually look at some of the previous data, say, are we on track? Are we doing this? And it's really effective. And just something from me here, just remember, focus on the curriculum. Data is very important, but it's very important that you track and highlight gaps in their learning, then progress will happen by itself. So don't just go, oh, I've only got a 97% on this and this and this. Data is important, but it's making sure you're using that in the curriculum in a really effective way. But highlight that data's meant to benefit you, not be the whole learning and not be the whole aim. Because if the student's making progress, they're developing them themselves, they're feeling more positive about their learning, and it's really influential and helpful. Just remember that, because you've got some really great curriculums out there, I'm sure. You've been doing it over time, working with other teachers to make really effective lessons. So you can just include this into your lesson. It's not more work. It's just using the data to help inform your lessons, to get the best from your students, to get the best outcomes and get them to make progress, to feel proud of themselves. When they do their exams at the end of the year, they go, wow, I did it. I've done great. And it's just really understanding that it's about the student at the end being proud of the grades they've got and hitting their targets, which they are able to get. So that's me done talking. So if you have any questions, if you want to write them in the chat. But I'd just like to say thank you so much for listening to this today. And I'm really glad that everyone's come along. If you haven't come along today, you've just listened to the recording, that's great. I just want to say I do hope you've had a great first week back, teachers. And just remember that you're doing a great job. And be confident in data. Data can support you and it can be really interesting. So please do have a look and use it. So I have one question, so I'm just going to read that out. So they've asked, what is the average percentage of pupils at Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5 in independent schools that have special access arrangements in exams due to SEN? So that's a really good question. So when you have your data, so we add 25% extra time. So I can't give you an exact number currently about a perfect percentage of how many students do have SEN across independent schools. It's very specific, I do like it. But what I would say is that a lot of schools do have a mix. So I've worked with some independent schools where they don't have an exam to enter. They have all their pupils overall, so any student is welcome, and they have a whole range of abilities. You have some independent schools where they have exams at the start or a test to work out gradings, and students invited over the grades they like to get. So there is a range, but from some of our reports, if you're an independent school, you can actually compare. So we have some of our reports where you can filter for just comparing against independent schools, which might give you some insight there about what they do. But then schools don't publish about how many SEN children are doing it or if they have extra time. But it is common when I've talked to schools do, and it's not a bad thing for students to have extra time. Actually, they've used they've used their individual pupil overview to actually identify some students who maybe have dyslexia, wasn't flagged before. So actually, in that way, it's really effective. Yeah, really good question. And if you would like a deeper answer and have a look a bit more into it, just drop an email to Kem and we can maybe try and find more of an exact answer. Yeah. Thank you for the question. So, yeah. And I just remind you to say that there will be a recording being sent to you by email and a certificate. Any more questions you have, please just email kem@cambridge.org. And if you'd like anything else to ask, and I really hope you enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy the rest of the first term. Thank you so much for coming.